Hey everyone, it's Alan Shimel, CEO of TechStrong, DevOps.com, Security Boulevard, Cloud Native, TechStrong TV, and welcome to this Fireside chat for our friends at OpenText. I'm really happy to be joined with one of my good friends and one of my best friends in the world of tech and in the world in general. He really needs no introduction if you have been in the DevOps, DevSecOps space, cloud space for a while. It's the one and only John Willis. Hey John. Yeah. Great to have you here, man.
To be here. It's awesome.
So John and I happen to be on the road together out in Austin, and we grabbed a few minutes for this fireside chat for you folks. We want to talk today to you about DevSecOps and AI, right? What does the road ahead look like here? And John, in case you don't know, in addition to being one of the kind of people who brought DevOps to the world and early on in cloud, has spent the last year or two now probably really diving deep on AI, operationalizing AI, working on a new book around the history of AI, and really kind of seeing where the intersection of AI, operations, DevOps, security, DevSecOps meets. So John, before we jump into the AI piece of it, let's step back and look at sort of the evolution of DevSecOps, SecOps, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I think, I was thinking about this a lot lately when I've been talking about, like, what is this intersection of AI? And what I realize is the people who are older who have been doing this, we've been in, before we call it DevOps, it was just sysadmins. But my whole career has mainly been operations, infrastructure and operations. And what we do at the end of the day is we protect the fort. So we think about, and the longer we've done this, the more we think about, there's always that sort of original DevOps construct of the wall and how we're sort of, the operations people are slowing down dev and dev are screaming, and Andrew Clay Schaefer created the wall of confusion, and DevOps was like crushing it down. But it is, operations, I don't have to defend the operations, but in the end of the day, it's not that we're trying to slow anything down. Our charter is to protect the fort. And so if we think about all these evolutions from sysadmins to DevOps, it was really about, like, how do we do our job to not only protect the fort, protect the brand, and then how do you protect the brand and you create growth? Right, so that's what DevOps was, right? We don't have to relive.
Absolutely.
And so somewhere along the way, and I used to do these presentations where I would say, I'd take my hat and I'd throw it, dang, we forgot about security, and then a bunch of people said, no, I didn't. Yeah, but the majority of the conversation for the first 5 years of DevOps was not security. You'd have somebody come in and give a security presentation here and there, but in general,
they gave lip service.
Right. It wasn't. We weren't. And actually, our good friend Mark Miller approached me and he said, "What about creating a DevSecOps stub?" And I got involved in that, and and Shannon Leach had created the manifesto for this.
Yeah.
And it really started to evolve in like this adjunct of DevOps, like all the things that if you're doing DevOps, why don't you just put
security in?
Yeah, the majority of the discussion around DevOps, it shouldn't be the only thing, the street culture, all the other things, measurement, but it was the pipeline. Mm-hmm. And so it was an easy abstraction to say, well, we're in the pipeline, why can't we be like not ignoring all the stuff like the SaaS, the DaaS, all that stuff goes into it. And so that became the conversation about DevSecOps, right? And it keeps evolving, it's still a very important discussion. And to me, that's the history. And the narrative behind that is how we keep forgetting our past.
Yeah.
We've been in this for a really long time. And how many times do we see that we get this aha moment as an industry, and a lot of us sit back and say, yeah,
it's obvious.
I mean, it's what happened with, it happened in from sort of mainframes to sort of first distributed, and it happened with cloud. And, the cycle now it's we're getting all shocked that AI might be, at the end of the day, a protect the fort infrastructure problem.
But like everything, here's how I look at it. Humans are fantastic tool users.
Yeah.
Right? That's what separates. Well, we found out it doesn't separate us. Apes use tools, other animals, birds use tools. But really, our use of tools is what has propelled us forward. All of these things you're talking about, all these technologies can be viewed as tools that we've used. And there are certain patterns in tool use. And you know what they say, if you don't learn your history, you're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
We seem doomed to repeat
We do,
mistakes at every wave. AI is the next great tool. And that's how I look at it. It's not Skynet. It's not, all these things. It's a tool. And we need to apply the same lessons learned.
And that's the thing that's missing right now. And this happens all the time. Cloud was this magic. There was this unbelievable magic when it first came out. We don't really even use. In fact, when I see vendors talk about cloud, this, and I think you're like you're missing the right decade, right? Because I don't know. This is phenomenal technology, and we're all in the midst of what is going on right now, because it is a what is going on technology. But I'm pretty certain, based on all the years we've been doing this, in 2 years, 3 years, we're not even going to be calling it AI. We're just going to go back to calling it services and products and delivery and customers.
And AI's built into it.
And AI's built into it. But the mistake we're making, we think it's this magical new sort of thing that we're treating differently. And so one of the things I'm trying to scream top of my lungs right now, through papers and a presentation called Dear CIO. CIO, this is, I know it's shiny, but it's still an infrastructure. My protection and sort of my tribe of the operations DevOps people is we need to get a handle on this, and we need to treat it like every new wave of technology, that it is a tool. It's a phenomenal tool, and we're all trying to learn what kind of tool it is. I'm pretty sure it's not the Terminator, but at the end of the day, and here's the other thing I was telling you earlier, you look at, as these companies internal, I spent a lot of time in large corporations who were trying to build Gen AI stacks.
Right.
They started off with Python, notebooks, Jupyter notebooks, right? Now they start evolving to sort of stack-like structures, orchestrators, observability, model management, RAG, all that. And they're sort of extending out. And nobody's keeping a common track of what all this stuff is doing, what it looks like. And so this is the time when sort of the DevOps play comes in. We start talking about, what does a stack look like? How should we learn from the stack? What I'm showing people now, as these are evolving, that only about 10 or 15% is AI. The 85% of this is Kafka, Kubernetes, Redis. And so what's happening is, we're thinking this is all new. We have people who don't, it's very much like cloud. People go, the new cloud people are going to do all this stuff, and they didn't do the traditional INO stuff you're supposed to do. So I'm watching this in organizations where they're putting in vanilla Kubernetes, they're putting in Kafka, they're putting in Redis, and they're just leaving the defaults because they don't know. Mm-hmm. And the chief AI officers are told, stay away from the CIO.
Yes.
They'll slow you down.
Let's stop there for a second, though. You mentioned something, a chief AI officer. Yeah. In your research and talking to people, how prevalent is it to have a chief AI officer?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Schwartz, wrote a book, The Seat at the Table, and he talked about, why did we create chief data officers? We thought big data was this whole, oh my God, it's brand new, we got to get chief. And what we found is they should have been under the CIO in the first place. We've the same mistake. It was just data. It was a new form of big data, and you got your Hoops and all that. Well, the same problem's how now, and it's at a way order of magnitude. CEOs are saying, do or die. Wall Street is telling them, do or die.
Right.
So they're like, you know what? I need to go get... And most of these organizations don't have a lot of IP around this new, especially the new starting with the new sort of transformer architectures. They have a lot of ML people that were doing internal, the small groups, real data scientists. And so now they're panicking, and they're going out, and I think rightfully so, hiring a chief AI officer. I don't think that's a mistake. I mean, I would prefer in John's world that they report to the CIO, because, again, it's an infrastructure operations problem. But
what about the CISO?
Well, I got a good story about this. But So here's what's happening. So they're telling the chief AI officer, go fast, I need you to build, go. And I think, wink, wink, don't even talk to that CIO person. They're going to slow you down. And the CIO's like, stay away from him. I don't need you going near him. And I'm hearing these stories when I go to talk to people. Yep, that's us. And so you got that one problem is people are moving fast. They're doing plain vanilla infrastructure. Wait till we see the breaches, right? And it's going to and dear CIO, it's all coming back to you anyway. On the CISO thing, I think it's even worse. I think it's another degree removed. If they think the CIO is going to the CEO thinks the CIO is going to slow down the chief AI officer, he doesn't even want you near
The CISO.
And I was at a large corporation recently that's gone really all in, a really large, big infrastructure. They've gone sort of like the second, third phase. They've gone from like Jupyter notebooks to simple stacks to now like scalable AI stacks that they're turning over as mass product to their customers, right? And I asked the chief AI officer, I said, have you reviewed any of this with the CISO? And it's a big company because they have a CISO. And she looked at me like a deer in the headlight because she knew the answer was terrible.
Right.
And after about 3 or 4 seconds delay, she said, no. I'm like, this is the narrative. Like, dear CIO, we wrote a paper on this, right? And dear CIO, you need to stand up now. You need to go ahead and say, this is infrastructure operations, folks. Like, it's coming back to you anyway. What I said to her was, I said, you know what? I said, I don't want to sound rude, but you're going to take aspirin now, or you're going to take it later.
Well, you're going to take codeine later.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. You're going to get codeine later, aspirin. You can take aspirin now. Yeah, and I've given this paper. We wrote this paper. It's a sort of anonymous. It's autonomous AI in the enterprise. It's basically a Phoenix project. It's to Gene Kim's organization, Topol Powell, myself, a few others, and it is this Phoenix project style of the CEO, Iron Chief AI Officer, the CIO, and all Phoenix project narratives end well, right? So they kind of figure out how to work it out. But I've given that to a couple of CIOs, and they just shake their head and they're going, this is us.
Yeah.
It's exactly what's going on in the large enterprises right now.
So I don't want to be doom and gloom. How can our DevSecOps teams, how can our CISOs, how can our security and DevOps teams not head this off at the pass, because I think the cow's out of the barn.
No.
But how can we recover from this? How can we make it work?
I think, so the thing that my mission right now as it goes is we need to train our tribe. We need to, so the problem we have right now, and I talked to some of these, one away from the CIOs, the people we know, and sort of the DevOps Enterprise Summit people, right? And what's happening in general, when they're being perfectly honest with me, the CIO is coming to them saying, hey, sounds like the HR team's putting in this new, co-pilot or a new sort of chatbot thing. And they're like, boss, I really don't know what to ask her. So we haven't educated ourselves fast enough.
Right.
We're still in a little denial, right? You told you about like made up numbers, but it's like 50-50 of everybody you talk in the DAOs community thinks, oh, that's baloney, it hallucinates.
Right.
No, stop the hallucination argument. It's happening.
It's real.
So then the question is, we have to educate ourselves. What's the best way to educate ourselves? Let's start eating our own dog food. Like, we can solve real cool problems in infrastructure and operations. Incident management. There are a lot of great ways that we can accelerate. Just like developers now are getting incredible productivity out of these tools, we can be getting productivity. I don't think anybody who's been using Copilot on Microsoft ever builds a sort of a Terraform or any type of configuration by hand anymore. You don't need to.
No.
You just ask the natural language question. So we need to start using the technology to save our own problems. Then, when the CIO says, should we be involved in this discussion of this no marketing Copilot tool? Yes. I want to go ask some questions. What vector database? I mean, right now, we don't even know how to ask these questions. What orchestration tool? Are you using LangChain? Are you using Llama Index? Are you using MongoDB vector data storage?
Sounds to me, though, like, okay, hey, security teams, not only CIO, CISO and security teams, you have an obligation. I don't want to use the word shadow AI, but that's what it sounds like, right? Shadow AI. You as a security person have to get a handle on that, because when something they're using hits the fan, it's coming back to you.
And it is scary in so many ways, because first off, if we thought the Java dependency map was a nightmare, which it absolutely is, it's sort of untenable. I mean, it's why there was an executive order. Like, it's, there's SolarWinds and it's a baby steps compared to the non-tested academic AI stuff that's going into production every second. I mean, I run models all day long. I feel lucky if a model that I wrote 2 weeks ago works on the following Monday, if something hasn't changed so fast. And just the sort of dependency of most of the Python libraries that are being used is so brittle right now, because it's never been used at scale. It's always been science projects, university projects. Now it's getting, companies like LangChain are implementing this at large banks. And see that now that code is being tested in way orders of magnitude more than it's ever been tested. And that's baby steps compared to model poisoning and all the model stuff. So now you get into really complicated problems. So the CISO, again, just like, I want to get the DevOps strategists, I want to get the people in DevOps to do IT security. The CISO and the sort of true CISO teams, now they're harder to get. I mean, if you think that DevOps are hard to get into AI, try talking to the CISO, they're like, oh, but they got to come up to speed because these models can. There's bytecode in these models. Yeah. There's and just the model management, and the poisoning and what is it? OWASP has done some unbelievable job talking about LLMs and top 10. Like just somebody stealing a model, walking out of a room with a model could be all of your IP in a company. So and then the other one that we totally left out of even the DevSecOps story is audit.
Yes.
So we got the same problem. Right now, I think we have a little bit of a window where the auditors don't know how to ask any questions about this stuff. It's the same thing happened with cloud. Early days, I remember when I interviewed people, I'd ask, about, like, they'd say things like, we don't tell auditors things they don't already know. Like, for example, early days of Kubernetes, they were like, they don't know about Kubernetes, right. We ain't telling them, right? We'll wait till they figure it out. And and there was a window there, with cloud, and then the window was gone, right? And the window's gone, what happens? You spend like 2 months, grueling phone calls.
You pay the pipe for that.
I think there's the window right now on audit for Gen AI is that the auditors don't really understand. Just like the ops people don't know how to understand, they don't know how to ask the questions. But that day is coming, and they're going to learn. And they're going to learn much faster than they did the other ones because the access to information like ChatGPT, an auditor. So Vanguard at Gene's conference, they have now a production grade, what they call Audit GPT, that they are turning on to their field auditors. And it was phenomenal. So the auditors, like they're already engaged, so they're going to much quicker, that gap of like they don't know, we'll wait till they know. They're going to come in like next Wednesday and start asking you really hard questions about it. And you know who's going to have to answer them? Not the chief AI officer.
No,
CIO.
the CISO and the CIO.
Right.
It's that
and they're going to, and they're not going to be able to say at that point because they go to jail, right? In some countries. Or
I hate that. I don't.
All right.
They're not going to. They don't look good in stripes.
But yeah. but like that's the Dear CIO message.
No, that is the
everything
message.
You feared about GDPR and all that stuff. It is going to hit you. So whatever the worst penalty you think you could get because of all the things
might be worse than that even. So let me spread the good news.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the glass is definitely half full.
Yeah. My DevSecOps friends out here from watching this open text event, they're saying, can we harness AI to do better, not just sort of regulate how it's being used in the organization.
Yeah.
But what's in it for me? What can we use in AI to do better with software supply chains? Do better.
Well, let's start off with the sort of base. I mean, one of the problems I have with all these things is cloud or no cloud, AI or no AI. I mean, it's never binary.
No.
So. I just saw some Adidas posted that they were getting 83% productivity gains. And they're not getting product in developer experience. And we keep looking like we can't use it or we can use it, or if we use it, we're all in. They're talking about 83% in just helping developers be better coders. So I think when we talk about DevSecOps, it doesn't have to be that, like, and I know a lot of product vendors are going to say, okay, you put this in and now you don't need ITSec anymore because we now MLL and we Gen AI'd all the answers. Well, that's not how it works. What it works now is DevSecOps, ITSec professionals, and I would argue audit, first line audit people can basically use these tools to get educated on stuff quicker. Because the real power of all this stuff is that it's a natural language. The natural language questioning of being able to get information. And so now, shout out to James Wickett, right? Like, they've integrated a lot of their sort of tooling with a vector where you can ask. So they took all their knowledge, all their industry knowledge, and they've made it available to their customers. So think about what is your knowledge corpus? How many times do you get called? How many times you point people to a wiki, which wastes a lot of time, and then they call you back? Let's start thinking about how we can sort of accelerate the knowledge we have, the knowledge we give, and the knowledge that we get throughout our sphere of influence. And so stop thinking it's either or, and how much, John Rouser at Cisco said this recently, said that a 1% productivity gain, he's like in DevOps and he's doing a lot of DevOps. Yeah, John. And he said a 1% productivity gain at Cisco is massive. So let's stop thinking about it has to be all or nothing. What if we have like 20,000 developers, or our infrastructure at DevSecOps teams is 300 people? What if we can get a 5%, 8% just productivity gain out of this technology?
I agree.
Then, that's massive.
5% is massive. Because 1% out of Cisco is massive. 5% pretty good at any company.
That's right.
But when you're at a scale company like that, it really is
stop
massive.
Thinking it's an either or, it's binary, it's all in or nothing. The answer is we have to learn how to use the CISO teams, the ITSec, the DevSecOps, the DevOps. We need to learn this technology. Let's start using it for our productivity gains. Stop resisting it. Stop making up these false equivalences. I can't use it because it hallucinates. No. You can basically mitigate hallucination. There are plenty of tools to do that. Get in the game, learn this stuff, start using it to solve and you'll see the productivity gains.
AI is your friend.
Yeah.
I think that's the way to end this. John, I want to thank you for coming on.
Sure, yeah.
Always a pleasure. For people who want to follow, best place is probably LinkedIn to follow what you're doing.
LinkedIn, John Willis there, Botchgaloop, a lot of places.
I know you're doing a tour with Patrick Dubois, also with DevOps.
We're running this week in Austin as well. I'm here. We're running. So it's a Gen AI 2-day workshop where we cover everything. We cover just about anything you need to know, from building more scaled out. And the way we're sort of couching is DevOps people explaining Gen AI to DevOps people. So instead of getting taught by somebody who's an AI expert or data scientist where your questions don't translate well, our argument is we understand the technology. We've been playing it for Patrick for 3 years. And when you ask this question, we'll know where it's coming from because we learned the same way you did or are about to. So,
excellent. Hey, John, thanks very much. Yeah. This is Alan Shimel for TechStrong. Enjoy the rest of the program.
Hey everyone, I'm Gabe Martinez, Director of Product Marketing for DevOps here at OpenText, and I'm actually really excited to be moderating this panel about DevSecOps, one of our favorite topics to talk about. So we just have 20 minutes together today, but my goal is to give you the best possible advice, insights, all of that for implementing a strong AI-powered DevSecOps culture within your organization. But I'm going to need your help to achieve this goal, so get your questions ready, and we've got a great panel of experts today. We've got Alan Shimel, CEO of TechStrong Group, well-known DevOps and security industry thought leader. Alan was actually in Texas, my home state, this week, so I think he's back in the friendly confines of Florida. We've also got John Falk, DevOps pre-sales manager here at OpenText as well. Rob Arrego, chief security strategist at OpenText for our cybersecurity side of the house. And Kelly Glendler, DevOps practice manager, part of our solutions consulting organization. So first and foremost, thank you everyone for joining today. Really looking forward to a great discussion. Should we kick off and dive right in and talk about it? I know 20 minutes won't go super long. Usually these things are about an hour, but let's maybe dive in first. And this is a question for all the panelists. How do you see or envision AI reshaping the future of DevSecOps? I think particularly the way that organizations address security threats.
I guess I'll start, Gabe. John Falk, and I think there's a lot of potential to accelerate the threat detection and mitigation process that everyone is looking for. I think with AI, as it continues to progress, it's going to allow teams to, in an early stage, identify potential vulnerabilities and how they would be exploited, right? And I think what we're seeing is the individuals that are exploiting vulnerabilities are most likely eventually going to be using AI from that perspective, right? To create those exploits and identify vulnerabilities that they can take advantage of. And so on the converse side, teams are going to be using AI to mitigate those risks and those threats so they can they can reduce the risk of applications that are either going into production or are currently in production. So they can increase the confidence of the organization that the applications they have deployed are meeting the business demand from a secure perspective. So I think there's just tremendous potential around what AI can deliver in that DevSecOps environment.
So I look at AI, it's a double-edged sword right now. I think as you've laid out, yes, the bad guys are going to use, the threat actors are going to use AI against us. And we've got to be able to defend AI type of attacks or AI assisted attacks. But it's not just the bad guys who are going to use AI. It's our own developers and DevOps teams and platform engineers and SREs who are going to use AI to go faster, do more. And we can't be the anchor on them going faster. We have got to figure out how to allow them, enable them to go faster, do more securely. And in my mind, the only way we could do that if they're using AI is if we're using AI, right? Because, it's kind of an arms race, if you will, all around. So I think while we need to figure out how to defend against AI-enhanced threats, and we need to figure out how to enable AI-enhanced CI/CD and development to go as fast as we can allow them to go, as fast as they can go. We need to figure out how to leverage AI to make all those things happen and to increase our security. Status quo is not good enough, right? What can we do with AI to make, you mentioned vulnerability scanning. Yeah, that's right? Can we do it with more testing? Can we build AI right into our IDEs so that we're shifting left? But shifting left by itself is not enough either. We need to shift everywhere, right? We need to have that security focus everywhere all at once, like the movie. But an AI gives us that, I think, power to do that. So I'm bullish on what AI can do for us in DevSecOps, in DevOps in general.
Yeah, and that distinction between DevSecOps and DevOps, Alan, you and I have talked about this before, but I guess in your mind, what lessons do you feel like DevSecOps specifically can take from traditional DevOps culture? How do you see the two evolving in the future? I guess, is one going to overtake the other? Will DevSecOps just become the more common terminology and phrasing, and security is just going to become everywhere as it should be? But where do you see that?
So this is right. 9-10 years ago, I started the DevSecOps sessions at RSA that we do every year on Monday of RSA week. And back then, it was hard bringing the security community into the DevOps tribe, and they didn't always think it was real. But DevSecOps is real. As a matter of fact, it's gotten to the point where DevSecOps is DevOps today. When you look at leading DevOps platforms, public companies, private companies, the leading DevOps platforms, they all call themselves DevSecOps platforms, not DevOps, right? I don't care whether we're talking about GitHub and GitLab or Cloudbees or JFrog or Harness or any of the CI/CD players. They all call themselves DevSecOps. So DevSecOps is DevOps because in today's world, you can't develop and deploy software if you're not doing it securely. The world won't stand for that anymore. And so DevSecOps is DevOps.
Do you agree with that philosophy? Yeah.
And I just want to kind of chime in on that because I think you're spot on, Alan. So as a focused cybersecurity individual for many years, even I don't really refer to it as DevSecOps purposely. I call it DevOps conversationally. It's part of a cultural shift in how we actually do engage with development teams, the QA teams, when I say we, I mean security. And we have to have those conversations using the actual verbiage that the development teams are used to. So again, how are we really embedding, as you mentioned earlier, that whole shift anywhere principle? Going back to your initial question as well, Gabe, the aspect, and John alluded to this, as far as AI goes in accelerating how we do it quicker, how we embed ourselves, we kind of just sit behind the scenes from a security perspective. I think we're already starting to do that effectively. What I mean by that is, and even Alan alluded to this, is embedding security testing principles and capabilities into developers' hands, into the developers' tools, the IDEs, and providing them the guidance, leveraging AI, as to where their security defects, not vulnerabilities, defects, because they think defects are. But not just where they are, how do we guide them to actually resolve them effectively and quickly? And in that world, security now takes actually the seat of a governance function, right? So security is no longer kind of pumping the brakes, asking the team to go back and fix these security issues, slowing things down. They're actually getting things resolved at the development side through QA all the way through, and security basically sits over the top in a governance function that says, thank you, you've delivered what we needed from a security perspective. We're hands off, we're not slowing you down any longer, and we're enabling you now going forward with AI kind of at the core helping do that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, right? So lots of different benefits, and of course, this is the big push and shift where organizations should be. But I guess, Kelly, maybe from your perspective, what do you see as the biggest hurdles for organizations when they're transitioning to this culture of a DevOps and security merged together, DevSecOps, right? How can they overcome without overwhelming their teams? I know that that's a real thing as well.
Yeah, so two things I run into personally. I'm curious in all the different roles here what you guys see, but one of them is from an implementation perspective, it's a boil the ocean thing, right? We're going to do deep and we're going to do wide all at once, and it's headed for disaster, right? Has to be much more iterative than that. But the other thing is more a cultural mind shift in the people in the teams. What we find is, and I think this is just human nature, that when there's a change like this, a lot of the teams, the individuals will say, okay, where do I do my same thing in the new tool or in the new process? And it's not your same thing. It's a little different, right? You collaborate in slightly different ways with people, that how information flows. And so it gets really awkward. And so you have those conversations with them of, well, I'm still doing the same thing. We just call it something different. It's like, well, you're not. It's going to work a little bit differently. Where things come from are going to be different. How you share information is different. And I think proactively preparing the teams for what that is going to be like helps get them in the right mindset to make that change. And that's really, it's hard to change your perspective.
Yeah, I guess, Alan, looking at like the face of complexity, because I know that continues to grow. You probably heard a lot and at the conference you were here in Austin with too, but just looking at how complex that multi-cloud environments are becoming, they're just burgeoning everywhere. What sort of key practices are you hearing, or things that maybe you probably have started to see quite a lot of companies adopting and ensuring security and making sure that hits and remains a core component of DevOps processes overall?
Yeah. So, couple of things, and I'll pick up from what Kelly said and run into your question, Gabe, is it's about being a team. And a lot of people would, the whole cultural aspect of DevOps, people give short shrift to because they focus on tools and outcome. But when you're a team, you're a team. And a team is made up of different components, right? You have offensive players, defensive players, depending what sport or whatever you're in. Security has to be part of the team, but we can't expect developers to be the security people. They could be security conscious, they could be security champions, but we as a security industry have to be good teammates. And that doesn't mean thinking we are the be all and end all when it comes to how things should be done, but we need to, like any good team, there's give and take, and you learn to be a good team. I think companies that are successful are doing that. They're making security part of their culture, part of their team, but they're not asking developers or QA people to become security professionals. If we were all security professionals, what a wonderful world it would be, but we probably wouldn't be doing too much development. So I think that's the first thing that we see. The second thing that we're seeing is, look, whether it's ML ops, AI ops, that kind of machine learning, or generative AI, we are seeing these technologies being used at the problem. And guys, make no mistake, where the battlefront is today is the software supply chain, right? Software supply chain security is where the DevSecOps battle is being fought day in and day out, right? We've got to make sure, obviously the further west we go, or the further left we go, excuse me, I'm looking at a compass thinking west, but the further left we go, the easier it is, or the cheaper it may be to fix things. But that software supply chain starts way out left and goes all the way through, even after deployment.
Mm-hmm.
And that at every stop along that way, every stop in that software supply chain, we've got to be thinking about how secure is that? Are we documenting it? Do we have our SBOMs in place so that people know where that component came from? What are we doing to make sure these components are safe when we add them to our supply chain? Right? Because that's where today's attacks seem to be coming from. And so I think as I look at it today, I know we've been talking about software supply chain security now for the last couple of years, but that's where the battle is going. That entire supply chain. And when you boil it down, that's what DevOps and DevSecOps is really. It's about that supply chain, that software development lifecycle. And we can't, too much DevSecOps gets focused on how can I make the developer develop more secure code. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think we should do that. But we got to think, further right on this supply chain as it moves beyond the developer to the QA person, to the SREs. What's platform engineering doing to set the guardrails and so forth in place for secure
deployment, all those things,
Yeah,
and all the way to deployment and even post-deployment, right? The job doesn't end. For those of us who've been in security a long time, it used to be all about post-deployment, right? We can't all of a sudden forget, assume, it's deployed, it's secure. It's not. That has to continue, part of the supply chain, part of the life cycle.
And it's much more expensive to fix things after the fact, too.
So
it gets exponentially. I'm sorry, go ahead, Kelly.
I was just going to say, then we should, petition the world to think that DevOps is not simply based on the two parts of the word. We actually mean planning and security and deployment and test and all those things. It's not just the DevOps piece, even though that's the piece that we picked out. The other thing is I would like to petition that we start using West and East. I actually like that. I've never thought of that before. We need to shift more West, Alan, like you said, and more East in our endeavors. I'm going to steal that next time.
That's actually a good idea, but that's how I was thinking about it. And remember your true north then, right? Because that's a good thing.
It's a whole new thing. You just invented it. We were here to witness it.
Right here. You heard it here first on the Open Text Conference.
That's right. That's right.
We're going to have a whole series on the compass of DevOps and DevSecOps. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
I love it.
Now, look for it on DevOps.com. But seriously, I do think we need to think about that. And AI is going to look. You can't yet talk about any of these things without thinking about how is AI. One of the things at the event I was at last week is there's about 27 million developers in the world today, and it might be 40 million. They used to say by 2030 or 2035. It's a huge jump, not quite double, but a huge jump. With AI, we might have 500 million developers by 2035. They may not be the developers that we're servicing today who are sort of professional developers, but in a world where natural language input can create applications on the fly, in essence, anybody can be a developer. And even us on here. Go on and just say, I want an application that does this, and that, in this environment. And it's done. How do we secure those? Do we also say, by the way, make it secure?
I love that you brought up AI too, Alan, because the one thing that I'm thinking as well is it's increasingly being integrated across all of these different pipelines. So I know that we're kind of running short on our time here today, but how maybe for everyone, how do you see AI enhancing security testing, vulnerability detection? Are there any specific areas where you feel like AI is going to start outperforming traditional methods? In a lot of the cases, they probably already have. And I know that things that we hear a lot are concerns over reliance on AI especially for critical security decisions. But just collectively from the team, how do you see all of those kind of fitting in?
Anybody going to jump on that, or?
I'll take one. I think. Well, two things. I think in general. One is pattern detection. With the compared to just people doing it or more, non-digital ways, I guess. Finding those patterns with bigger data sets, you have to have the bigger data set to find the pattern, but human eyes can't work that fast. It's just too slow. And I think, to your point, the over-reliance, I think that always becomes a problem, right? We become too reliant on anything that's autonomous, whether it's development, coding, security, cars. When we sign off, things can get weird. So it's a balance. But that's my take. I'm curious, you guys.
Anybody else want to jump in? I felt like I talked too much.
No, it's all good. I agree with what you're saying, Kelly. I think it is a fine balance between the two. As we kind of talked about a little earlier, AI from the bad guys' perspective, they are well ahead of us. Let's be honest. That's the reality of it. They always are ahead of us. The fact, though, that we're starting to actually implement capability to help the efficiency of, again, picking off where these security issues may be, to be able to provide that quicker time to fix and then release is really helping everyone along that path. So again, I think we're at the early stages of that, though there's some good capability that started to come out there. Part of that is also a bit of the education, I think, Alan, you alluded to, from the developer side. Developers aren't trying to go and develop code that has security defects, right? They're racing to get a application out the door to drive revenue typically behind it. And now by being able to actually embed it back in again to their hands of where their security issues may reside, it's also educating them on the fly. It's making them happy because, again, they're able to release what they desire, which is secure code at the end of the day. So again, those things are all in early infancy, moving in the right direction.
Definitely.
And I'll just add, and per Alan, what you brought up in the beginning is security can't be an anchor in the DevOps process. Security has to move at the pace of DevOps for it to be embraced and be effective. And I think AI is going to give security the ability and capability to sustain that pace so teams can maintain a high level of velocity and decrease the time to market, because that's why they implemented a DevOps practice to start with, right? They want to increase velocity, decrease time to market, but they have to do it in a secure fashion. And AI needs to be embedded in that process in order to bring that to market.
All right, guys. Thank you. Go ahead.
No, I agree.
Well, we are, I think, close to our time right now, but maybe rapid fire really quick. What is one thing that organizations can quickly bring back to their teams, in implementing DevSecOps, AI-powered DevSecOps, and maybe like a quick phrase from each of you? Sort of a tactical, practical thing.
Make AI your friend, not your enemy. Don't fear it, embrace it, use it, leverage it.
I would say collaborate, partner, right? Really working close together, and this kind of historical aspect of separation, as I look at it, is church and state between development and security. Let's get rid of that, embed, work together, very close collaboration.
It's kind of what I took away from all of you, quite frankly, which is, you don't want to be the party of no. Be proactive in how you can use it and start with practical ways, right? And then build on that foundation.
Yeah, and just, come forward with an AI strategy for your organization that includes all aspects of AI as it relates to the DevOps process. Organizations today just need to have an AI strategy. Otherwise, they're missing the market and they're going to be left behind.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, everyone. I appreciate the time. Want to just graciously give as much kudos as I can to each of you for jumping in today and talking about some really hot topics when it comes to what the industry is really focused on between security, DevOps, AI, all of those things converging into one another. So thank you very much for taking the time. Hope everyone got a lot of information from this, some practical, tactical tips you could take back to your organizations. And with that, I will sign off. and look forward to having you join us in the rest of the sessions that we have here in the DevSecOps Virtual Summit. Thank you, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, that brings us to the end of our virtual summit this year. We really appreciate all of you joining. Before you go, we would love for you to give us your feedback. There's going to be a survey that pops up, or you can access it at the bottom of your screen. Just take a couple of minutes to give us feedback on some questions and anything else you'd like to share. Thanks again for joining us for this year's summit. It was a great event for us. Obviously, we hope it was very helpful for you. We really look forward to seeing all of you again at future virtual events and in person. So come by and say hi, give us feedback as we go, and we will talk again soon. Have a good rest of your day. Thank you.